something happened to Trump, right?
But something happened to all of them.
What did you expect from Marco Rubio?
Absolutely nothing. Exactly what we see.
Exactly. The person that I think I placed stock in was Trump. And we got played. There's no other way to say it. So to answer your question, no, I don't consider myself to be a Republican.
Damn. So Candace Owens went on Sean Ryan's podcast and they let it rip, and mainly against Trump. Fun for everyone. Anna's got more.
Yeah, it was a 4.5 hour long conversation. So clearly they spoke about other things, including Charlie Kirk's assassination. I gotta say, it was a very interesting listen, and it didn't feel like 4.5 hours. But I do want to talk a little bit about, just how black-pilled Sean Ryan especially is when it comes to not just the Trump administration, but I think he's like just fully disgusted by our government. So much so that he doesn't think that he's ever gonna vote again, which I hope that's not true. But either way, one of the most fascinating portions of this conversation was something that Candace Owens said about Trump's ties to the Adelsons. Now, we all know, and we've talked about it multiple times before on the show, that the Adelsons provided hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign donations to Donald Trump. But I gotta say, Cenk, even me, I'm so naive that I didn't connect an important dot. Take a look.
It's kind of shocking the ways that he lied. And so you have to then go, why? This is nothing like Trump 1.0. Trump 2.0 is totally different. He took $300 million from Miriam Adelson, something that he once mocked Marco Rubio from doing. He tweeted once about Sheldon Adelson owning Marco Rubio. And you don't take $300 million from people who run the Vegas.
A very generous woman.
You don't take $300 million from people who run Vegas and tell them no about anything. That's how it works. That you could talk about that on the micro level. This stuff growing up, basic survival skills. Like when people, you don't borrow money from people unless you know who they are. And that's can apply to gangs. It's time to pay up. And so Trump is not his own man, plain and simple.
Now remember, the $300 million that Trump received from the Adelsons wasn't just from Miriam. He received some of that money during his first term. And that was when Miriam Adelson's grotesque hog of a husband, Sheldon, was still alive. And with that in mind, I just wanna really emphasize, Candace is not wrong. In fact, take a look at this.
Adelson is pretty shady. He made most of his fortune building casinos in Macau, one of only 2 regions in China where gambling is legal. In 2012, the Justice Department launched an investigation into his company after a former employee accused him of suspicious business activities.
Those activities included rampant prostitution and loan sharking, potential money laundering, and involvement with Chinese gangs known as triads.
In 2014, Adelson donated $2.5 million to stop the legalization of medical marijuana in Florida, despite funding marijuana research studies in Israel. Is he high? In fact, he's so staunchly pro-Israel, he's casually suggested nuking Iran just to send them a message.
He was being investigated for criminal activity, including loan sharking. He was messing around with Chinese gangs. Back to you, Cenk.
So I actually wrote about this in my book, Justice is Coming. I spent a good deal of time on it because I used it as a perfect example of corruption in our system. So once the Supreme Court legalized bribery, my point was, well, what's gonna stop people from giving hundreds of millions of dollars and eventually billions of dollars? And in this election cycle, Elon Musk gave over $250 million to Donald Trump. The Adelson family has given over $317 million to Donald Trump. And some people say, "Wow, you guys are being outrageous. These wonderful, upstanding citizens. You're, alluding to Vegas and potential mafia ties." And well, first of all, he was literally charged with having ties to the triad which is the mafia in Asia, and money laundering, loan sharking, prostitution, all the things that the mob do, right? And if you didn't know this, most of the Adelson money comes from China. So it's a company that makes most of its money in China that is legally bribing our president to serve a third country, Israel. Do you see how insane our system is? This isn't about Donald Trump. Remember Joe Biden also was like, oh yeah, you want a genocide in Gaza? I'm perfectly happy to fund it for you, and gave the Israelis over $21 billion. You want to take a wild guess as to who the #1 lifetime donor to Joe Biden was? Of course, the Israeli lobby, of course. Everybody knows this, only the legacy media reporters pretend not to know it. And then they'll say things like, oh my God, are you saying they might be, it sounded like Candace Owens was saying that they might be threatening Trump's life. Oh, that is outrageous. I mean, you think the Israelis, hold on, Anna. You think the Israelis would do that? The Israelis killed 23,000 children, and they had American doctors reported headshots, chest shots. They were assassinating kids under the age of 5. They're raping detainees with dogs. You think they have any moral boundaries? And the Adelsons are Israelis as well as Americans. And so, and Anna, one thing about, like, we're looking at the Lebanese prime minister, and he's doing this, the most corrupt deal we've ever seen. He's letting Israel steal southern Lebanon and invade the rest of Lebanon anytime we want. Why? Well, he knows, like the mobsters that the Israelis are, if he doesn't agree to whatever they want, the Israelis will call him a terrorist and then murder him and his entire family. And then our press will dutifully report the Israelis have been heroic and killed another terrorist. And so, yeah, they rule by threats and violence and death and murder.
That's great. Then in that case, I think it's just a fantastic idea to merge the IDF with our military and do what Senator Tom Cotton is creaming his pants about, which is merge Mossad with our intelligence. In fact, make it so our intelligence agencies are mandated to share intelligence with Israel. It'll work out real well for us, right? Like, this is just, look, I think that the Israelis got their foot in the door with the money, the bribery. And then the neoconservatives, the deep state, I mean, our government is littered with people who don't value our country and just see it as the host for Israel's, resources, essentially. Okay, but I want to go back to some of what Candace said that I don't fully agree with, but I can see why she thinks what she thinks. So it is true that Trump's second term is different from his first term. There's no question. I mean, there are no brakes on this car. He is just going for it, whether it's the greed, the corruption, the warring. The thing with Trump is, yeah, he didn't start any new wars in his first term, but he did things that were extremely hawkish that flew under the radar, essentially, right? So ripping up the Iran nuclear deal is what he did in his first term. That was in 2018. That set the stage for what we're experiencing today with this stupid, nonsensical war against Iran. Remember, he was the one who dropped the mother of all bombs, I believe in Syria, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he expanded the drone war to such an extent that the collateral damage, meaning the number of civilians killed by our drones, was so extreme that he ordered the government to stop reporting those numbers, because the federal government would put out reports about, casualty numbers and things like that. He was very hawkish, but again, I think it flew under the radar because you have the left that's like screaming from the mountaintops about what Trump is up to. They're also screaming from the mountaintops about Trump's self-enrichment, the fact that he's super corrupt and he's like making all these deals for himself as he's sitting in the Oval Office. But the right didn't trust the left at all. Like, there was no one on the left who they would listen to. And I think it's because, I don't know, there was no crossover, Cenk. Like, the left was 100% convinced everyone on the right is demonic and vice versa. So everyone existed in these bubbles where I don't know if this information ever got to people like Candace. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So he dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan, and I want to really go off on how important it is that Candace and and others and Sean are talking about his hypocrisy this time around. But let's watch the clip first.
Yeah.
Trump is not running this administration. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't, hey, I really love what you're doing. Here's $300 million. It came with contingencies, demands, one of it being that they wanted to annex the West Bank, which was something that was told to me by Charlie and Andrew Colbert, who were present for that meeting between Mary Madelson and Donald Trump, that she said that. I'll cut you this check. But when we want to annex the West Bank, that's what they wanted in exchange. So now I think he probably has a little bit of regret taking the money.
You think so?
I think so. I don't think he likes not being his own man. I think that's what a lot of the lashing out is about. I think Trump, at his core, wants to be liked, and I think he knows he's not liked right now.
You think he'll ever be liked again?
No.
Me neither.
Mm-mm.
Damn.
Yeah.
Look, I value that. And the reason why I value it isn't because I'm not a fan of Trump. I value it because those are two people who are guided by their principles and their values, which is so rare to see in today's like grifter-filled environment. You know what I'm saying? So you still see people who have been betrayed by Trump. He broke every promise, and they're still like in this weird cult where they're defending him. At least Candace Owens and Sean Ryan are willing to tell the truth. He promised us things. He didn't live up to those promises. Now we're against him. And I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, probably the post I'm most proud of on X is one of the most controversial ones I've had, where I said, I'd rather be in the populous woods than in an establishment prison after Trump won. And is it because I like Trump? No, the exact opposite. Because I get estimated that the populous woods, which is online media, would break free of the talking points of establishment media, which is corporate media, that's cable news, New York Times, etc. So the establishment in my lifetime has done nothing but propaganda for the rich and the powerful. They hate outsiders, constantly viciously attack them. They love insiders, constantly protect them. So now here we are, and you just saw what's happening in the populous woods. They're shivving Donald Trump as he rightly deserves politically. And so, I mean, if I had told you a couple of years ago, Sean Ryan, who was one of the bigger right-wing podcasters, and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, and on, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tom Massey, are all hitting Trump harder than any Democrat, you'd have said there's no way that, in fact, I don't know about you in particular, whichever viewer you are, but we do know, and understandably so, that a giant percentage of our side said there's a 0% chance that'll happen. And here we are, you're seeing it with your own eyes. And let me explain why that's so important. Because it's not like, to Anna's point, Trump's hypocrisy didn't exist before, and we would point it out until we were blue in the face. But it hits different when someone from the right tells their viewers on the right, hey guys, you're not imagining it. The left wing isn't lying about it. It's true, Trump did say about how Rubio was owned by the Adelsons, and then Trump became owned by the Adelsons. And that is enormously hypocritical. So when we said it, the right wing and some of the independents just shut it off. Oh, they've got Trump derangement syndrome. They're biased, they're on the left, I'm not gonna count it. Well, now everyone is saying it. And Anna, I think that just makes a world of difference.
It makes a world of difference because the way that I see it is that for the longest time, certainly my entire adult career, like I've noticed that there's been this paradigm where, again, the left defends the left, the right defends the right, and there is no honest assessment of your own side. And here at TYT, we do an honest assessment of our own side every day, and some people get upset at us for it, but I want to be honest because I don't want to be guided by, oh, I defend a tribe. I want to be guided by who I really am as a person, what my principles are, what my values are. And if you're not living up to the values that you purport to have, which made me want to vote for you in the first place, why would I continue defending you? So the reason why I appreciate this, Cenk, is because it's breaking that, I guess, corporate media paradigm of divide and conquer. I don't think they intend to divide and conquer, but that's what happened. And you're just not getting the full story. So if you're looking at MSNBC, you're not getting the full story. You're not really doing an honest assessment about how the Democrats are effing up. So that's why I think this is important. And you're seeing it percolate, you're seeing it grow in independent media, and that's happening for a reason.
Yeah, I'll just add one quick thing and then I want to go back to the clips. Look, I'm super proud that we challenged the Democratic Party from the left for the last 15, 20 years, right? I love being independent that way. And so and unfortunately it wasn't reciprocated for 18 out of the 20 years, but finally the fact that some on the right are being honest and calling out their own, it's such a relief.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.